You hear about fantastic claims in the media, newspapers, television, so forth, about anti-aging. And let's talk a little bit about that and what we know about the aging process and what we, if anything, can do about that.
Well, there's an awful lot we can do about it. In fact, I think the way in which humans age is very abnormal compared to the rest of nature. I've been thinking about this a lot, and several things kind of occurred to me here. If you find a wild animal and you were able to look at it 2 weeks before it dies of old age, it's going to be 90 to 95% as fast as it was at its fastest. But as humans, by the time we're 30, we realize we don't heal as quickly, and so you start slowing down.
I've noticed that.
Yes, I know, me too. And so, what can we do about this? That's not normal. Why I think what's happened is we're really out of sync with nature. And I have a theory of aging which I think explains this. It's kind of an attractive theory on several points. But it's like this. If you look at a person, if a doctor is looking at a person's kidneys to evaluate them for their functioning, the doctor can't tell that there's any problem with those kidneys until they've lost over 80% of its total capacity. So 80% of its functionalities, total or capacity rather, has to be gone before we can find anything wrong with it. 90% of the substantia nigra, the part of the brain involved with Parkinson's disease, is gone before there's any symptoms of Parkinson's, before any tremor shows up. And so we think we're getting away with things when we're younger, but what we're doing is eating up organ reserve, you see. So how do you know how to preserve that? That's one of the big questions. Organ reserve. As total capacity falls, okay, your total capacity drops, it's not a problem. Not a problem, not a problem, not a problem. Till you get down to here. Now you're hitting functionality, the last 20 or 10% or so, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, so that's what we want to do, is preserve organ reserve. Hunter-gatherers live to be 60, 70, and 80 years old. I mean, and they have, because they have to go from, they walk 14 miles in a day, as they change hunting grounds, and that's usually every week to 10 days or so. And so, the young women get severely chastised if they have a baby more often than every 3 years, because they want this one on the ground walking before she's got to carry another one. And so, one day Grandpa's in his 80s, and he says, they're getting up to move, and he says, I didn't sleep very good last night. I think I'm going to hang back here and rest up. And so y'all go ahead. I'll catch up. I'll follow the trail. It's no problem. Y'all go ahead. Oh, no, Grandpa, we'll wait for you. We can wait. We got plenty of food here. We'll rest up here. You rest up here, and we'll go in the morning. He said, here, drink this, They all go to sleep that night, and they wake up the next day. Grandpa died in the night, and they go on. So his functionality was good until he hit the wall, okay? So we're supposed to hit the wall with all of our organ systems at the same time, because it makes no sense that you would have, say, a cardiovascular system good for 75 years and a central nervous system good for 200.
That makes sense.
It doesn't make sense either from a design point of view or an evolutionary point of view. That's wasted. So in theory, you should hit the wall, but with the way we're doing things now, we're so out of sync with nature, eating foods that selectively destroy different systems than others, we have a downward decline. And as soon as one of those systems is gone, we're through. Or you end up aging very quickly at that point. But you end up with a slow downward decline. And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to maintain functionality all the way through until you've lost over 80% or so of your capacity. And then you're done. We all know the guy that's 96 years old, and they found him dead in the garden one day, and he had made his own breakfast that morning, And that's kind of what we want to be able to do, is to maintain functionality. And that's what anti-aging medicine does. It helps to maintain functionality.
See, so it's not really unnatural to be aging. It's just the way that we're aging generally is unnatural. And you're kind of implying that we're doing things wrong. Can we do things right to affect that?
We're learning what we can do for that. And I think one of the things is keeping your hormones at a healthy level, keeping our hormones, replacing them with bioidentical hormones if need to, but keep that at about a 22, 23-year-old level. You can go a long ways to maintaining health. Eating the foods that humans are designed to eat is another one. The paleo diet teaches us how to do that. Getting a good night's rest, thinking good thoughts, drinking lots of water. Doing that which you truly enjoy doing in life is probably as healthful thing as you could possibly do. Relaxation techniques, ways to reduce your stress as much as possible in these very stressful times.
You had a great example of anti-aging and the use of hormones and so forth in a natural setting with our German ranchers around here in the hill country.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I live in an area here at the foothills in the Texas Hill Country, and we have a lot of ranchers out here. And then we also have a lot of flatlands just to the east, and I take care of a lot of farmers as well. And it's it's been very interesting to me to watch these two different groups and their health. Because what you find is these ranchers are incredibly healthy guys. Their testosterone level, typically maybe in their 70s and even up into their 80s, is above the normal expected range for human beings. Even growth hormone, which we measure by looking at something called IGF-1, is often in the 400s, 300s. At that age, in the upper ages, it's usually, if you get it to 100, you're lucky. And it keeps these guys apparently very healthy. They got a lot of, they're on horseback 6-7 hours a day. A lot of times they're outdoors a lot. They deal with nature. And they got a lot of meat grilling, and that's free-range beef that they're dealing with, not grass-fed. So I feel like that's part of it. Now, my farmers, on the other hand, total different group of guys. They typically have testosterones running around 200 or so, which is below the normal human range. They have big bellies. They're overweight. Obviously, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. By the time they're in their early 60s, they usually have a bypass scar coming down, a zipper down the front of their chest. They're sort of pale, and libido is just sort of acute memory. My cowboy ranchers, on the other hand, they're maybe 75 years old. They're still out trimming trees. They still notice the girls when they go by, and they're still in the game. Skinny old guys got their hat ready to go. And there's just a vitality there that's very different.
What do you attribute the differences to from one to the other?
Well, that's a very good question. I've thought about that. I guess maybe who goes into what. You've probably got a special kind of individual that wants to be a rancher and ride horseback and do that sort of thing. So there's probably a fairly high testosterone subset that goes into that, I'm guessing. They don't have the pesticides and the fertilizers, which I think is maybe detrimental to the farmers. They have to deal with that, and maybe on a pretty heavy basis. So and then it sort of snowballs from there. But the hormones, I think, of course, is the one thing that I can get involved with, besides trying to change their diet, maybe doing some detoxification as well to get some of those pesticides out of their system. But it's an excellent question. I'm still looking at that, and I think that we need to research that and to find out. But keeping the hormones at a healthy level,
That's the approach that you take?
That's the approach that I take for the guys whose hormones have sort of left them to a large degree. And they recover. The diabetes tends to go away. The blood pressure tends to go away. The high blood pressure goes away. Cholesterol falls. The fat begins to dissipate. And as they burn that up, they build more muscle. Color comes back. And the libido comes back. That's not hard to bring back. And if it hasn't been too long, then their functionality also comes back. And so that's kind of the approach that I take. And it's sort of reversing. I try to recreate a rancher out of a farmer. And I have to say not all farmers are that way, but the trend between those two groups is stark.
Very interesting. Is there's something that our viewers can take home with them today about anti-aging, about helping slow down the process of getting older?
Right. I think learning how to detoxify, to get the toxins out of the system, a little mercury out of the teeth, for somebody who knows what they're doing to take the mercury out of their fillings, the silver fillings. Good bacteria for the intestinal tract is super key. I always recommend that, the acidophilus. Omega-3 fish oil is probably the simplest thing a person can do, and that's the one that people tend to stick with even after they've dropped everything else, if they tend to do that. And so those are the best. I think, of course, you can always visit your anti-aging physician and get good advice there.
You've been watching Beyond Medicine, Natural Health Empowerment. If you would like more information, contact the Sebring Clinic at 512-847-5618 or visit us on the web at sebringclinic.com.